Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Hari.
And I'm Kimi. Today we're exploring a fascinating, short-lived piece of aviation history, the Morris Park Aerodrome in the Bronx, New York.
Right, Kimi. Operating only from 1908 to 1909, this site is often called the very first dedicated flying field in the United States, though historians widely recognize Huffman Prairie as the world's first. It occupied the grounds of the former Morris Park Racecourse, which had closed down in 1904.
It's incredible how it went from horse racing to automobile racing, then to airplanes. The shift happened because of some serious drama within the Aero Club of America. 50 frustrated members decided to split off on June 10, 1908.
They felt the Aero Club's leadership was a cold, wet blanket of official objection, uninterested in practical aviation. So they formed the Aeronautical Society of New York, determined to find a place where inventors could build and test real aircraft.
Morris Park was absolutely perfect. It was cheap, had level ground, and most importantly, it was close to a subway station and trolley stop. This meant working-class experimenters, not just the wealthy elite, could easily access the field.
Exactly. Public transit made it highly accessible. The society signed a lease through December 1909 and immediately got to work, removing fences to create a straight runway. They even hosted lectures in the old clubhouse and dined at the nearby fashionable Woodmanston Inn.
It wasn't just a workspace, it was a school, too. Albert Triaca established his International School of Aeronautics there. Within the first year, members built 24 full-sized airplanes, plus numerous gliders, scale models, and airships. Nearly a quarter of the members held aviation patents.
But, Kimi, city officials weren't always cooperative. Since there were no hills for launching gliders, the society built a massive wooden launching tower. Lacking a building permit, city inspectors declared it a residence. Since it lacked plumbing and a fire escape, they made it a residence and they made them tear it down.
That is hilarious. Talk about bureaucratic red tape. Now, let's definitely talk about their first major event, the November 1908 exhibition. It was held on Election Day, and it was absolute chaos. They expected a modest crowd, but 20,000 spectators showed up.
Unfortunately, the old fences were in terrible shape. Only about 3,500 people actually paid the 50-cent admission fee. The rest just swarmed the field. Among those spectating was Grover Loening, who would later earn the nation's first aeronautical engineering degree from Columbia. The star of that day was Lawrence Lesh, a 16-year-old glider prodigy. He was towed into the air by a Thomas Flyer car driven by Montague Roberts, a famous racer. But on his third flight, Lesh crashed from 70 feet up, severely breaking his ankle.
That was a tough break for the kid. The crowd also witnessed wind wagons, propeller-driven tricycles. Inventor Julian Thomas crashed his wind wagon during practice before the show. He was knocked unconscious, but when he came to, he calmly asked for a cigarette and refused to go to the hospital.
That is legendary. Famous cartoonist Rudolph Dirks, creator of the Katzenjammer Kids, was in the crowd. Inspired, he rushed to his studio and painted the scene on a window shade because he had no canvas handy. That painting, called The Fledglings, is now in the Smithsonian.
That is such a wonderfully cool detail. Fast forward to June 1909, when they held their second exhibition. The main attraction was aviation pioneer Glenn Curtiss, flying his motorized biplane, the Golden Flyer. The society had purchased it from him for $5,000.
This transaction was historic. It was the first airplane sale to a civilian owner, and Curtiss's flights were the very first over New York City. The plane used innovative ailerons for lateral control rather than the Wright brothers' wing warping system, which prompted a massive patent lawsuit from the Wrights.
Another glider demonstration by William Martin also ended in a crash, and while some accounts suggest his 8-year-old granddaughter Blanche flew it solo to become the youngest person to fly, historical records indicate she was actually a passenger on flights that occurred on her family's farm in Ohio. The day also featured parachute jumps and a balloonatic race, where runners were partially lifted by gas balloons.
Beyond the exhibitions, Morris Park was home to incredibly diverse designs. Wilbur Kimball built a massive 42-foot biplane driven by 8 propellers. The famous actress Anna Held christened it as the NY number 1 on March 14, 1909, marking the first time an airplane was ever christened.
There was also Stanley Beach and Charles Willard's monoplane, which some contemporary reports claimed was the first monoplane flown in the United States, although historical consensus indicates it was a failure and never actually achieved flight. And we absolutely cannot forget dentist Henry Walden, who built several designs there, eventually leading to his successful Walden III.
But my personal absolute favorite story has to be the American Eagle dirigible. This giant airship was built by Joel Rice and John Riggs. Riggs owned a patent medicine company and decided to paint Lopez, the name of his medicine, in giant letters on the gas bag. Rice was so offended by this blatant advertisement that he threatened to destroy the airship. Riggs actually hired his own family members to stand guard around it. But Rice managed to slip past them and painted over the advertisement with house paint, which severely damaged the fabric.
When they finally attempted to fly the airship, the steering planes accidentally struck and destroyed the propellers. Days later, a massive gale ruined the envelope completely. Riggs lost nearly $50,000 and went back to Arkansas in defeat.
What a wild soap opera! By the end of 1909, the short-term lease expired and the land was designated for residential development. The society moved its operations to Long Island, to what would become Roosevelt Field. In May 1910, a fire swept through the old Morris Park property, destroying the racetrack.
It was a fiery end to a brief, chaotic, but incredibly important chapter in American aviation history. We hope you enjoyed this dive into the sky-high dreams of Morris Park. Thank you so much for listening, everyone, and goodbye.
This episode is based on the Wikipedia article Morris Park Aerodrome, which is available under the Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike license. This podcast was crafted using artificial intelligence.